Welcome back. It's day 3 of fasting, and this is it. Today I'll be talking about the 3 final films I have to watch, being Furious 7, Fate of the Furious, and Hobbs Shaw. Unfortunately, I can't dip into F9 because I live in Canada, and up here it's still really not safe enough to go to the movies yet. Sorry, folks. So, in order to patch that wound up, I've got something special planned for you instead. I have taken Dominic Toretto's Winning is Winning monologue from the very first movie, and I have rewritten it as a Shakespearean monologue, and I'll perform it for you myself at the end of this video. So stay tuned, but in the meantime, we've got 3 more movies to learn from. Let's get started. First of all, thank God there's still a movie franchise brave enough to use actual numbers in their sequel titles. Fast and Furious made 7 movies, and they are not ashamed of it. They're proud of it. And for that, I'm going to give them a standing ovation right now. I don't even care. I don't care that you can't see my face. They earned this. I'm not being smug here. I love the fact that the 7th and 9th movies are actually called Furious 7 and F9. Franchises, you need to stop being embarrassed of your sequels. You need to revel in that shit. You need to wear the prolific nature of your IP on your sleeves like these guys do. If they make 21 of these, I hope the 21st movie is called Fast and Furious 21 because why the fuck not? So my biggest takeaway from Furious 7 is that, for the first time in the whole franchise, the characters are starting to have appropriate reactions to things. Remember in Fast 5 when Brian and Dom drove off a cliff and fell hundreds of feet into a lake and they shrugged it off like it was just whatever? Here they're still driving off cliffs and making their vehicles do ridiculous things, but at least they're starting to look a little freaked out about it. Toretto is still a stoic golem, because of course he is, but when the crew skydive their cars out of a moving plane, at least everybody else seems to take a moment to react to how batshit crazy this choice was. And now that we're here, guys, I get it now. Everybody talks about how the franchise seemed to turn somewhere around Part 5 to become something else entirely, and now I can see it. The movies have become really good action flicks. And the lesson I took away from Furious 7 is a reminder that the best action films, or at least my favorite ones, are the ones where the action is creative and happens in layers. In the climactic sequence in Return of the Jedi, you've got 3 things going on. Leia and the rebels are fighting off stormtroopers on Endor, Lando is in space trying to blow up the second Death Star, and Luke is in the throne room facing off with Vader and the Emperor. 3 simultaneous layers, all of them distinct, all with high stakes, intense, beautiful, chef kiss. The climaxes of Fast and Furious 6 and 7 march to the same tune, particularly 7. You've got Dom going after Shaw, the rest of the crew playing hot potato with Ramsey while Jaimin Hansu chases them in his helicopter, and then when a tower gets blown up, you've got Brian going off to manually reset the satellite link, all while dealing with Ong Bak as a fun little mini-boss. Intense, beautiful, chef kiss. And creative action is just as important. I mentioned the skydiving with cars thing. We've never seen that before. It's insane. But it's creative and it's totally something these maniacs would do, so why not? The climax of Fast and Furious 4 doesn't resonate much with me because it's just a straightforward chase through a dark tunnel. Nothing really unique or creative about it. It's just another chase in a franchise full of chases with unremarkable cars in an unremarkable setting. This? Whole different story. The Pirates of the Caribbean movies have a lot of sword fights, but my favorite one happens in Dead Man's Chest, because it's not just a straightforward duel. It's a 3-way, every man for himself duel. And half of it takes place on a rolling mill wheel. And intercut with it all is a whole extra layer with Elizabeth on the beach fighting off Davy Jones's Fishman pirates. There are not enough chef kisses in the world. Oh, and that little tribute they did at the end for Paul Walker? Beautiful. To sum up the plot of The Fate of the Furious, Toretto betrays his family because Charlize Theron's character, Cypher, is dangling something unseen in front of him, and the movies have gotten so bonkers at this point that if they revealed she was using straight-up witchcraft to get Dom on her side, I don't think I would have batted an eyelash. But once again, I have to put on my impressed cap because Fate of the Furious delivers even more outstanding action in a franchise that's already full to bursting with it. For starters, there's the impressive as hell zombie car sequence in the middle of Manhattan, which looks super eerie and even ends with Dom dressed up like a Marvel villain. But more important, there's the Hobbs Shaw prison break, which proves that these films can deliver spectacular action without even needing to involve cars anymore. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the final set piece involving the submarine. I don't think there was anything particularly wrong with it, but it was very straightforward and visually kind of bland. I don't think it comes close to matching the intensity of the climaxes of 6 and 7. The lesson I learned watching Fate of the Furious applies to both cinema and writing, and it's the importance of a memorable villain. Do you know why James Bond villains are so well known, to the point where I could show you a picture of these ones and you'd know they were James Bond villains even if you haven't seen any of the movies? It's because they're larger than life. They have character. It's impossible for any of these people to blend into a crowd. Some James Bond movies are wacky, dumb cartoons, and others are straight-up masterpieces. But there's a third category of Bond film that tends to get swept under the rug a lot, and it's the category of films that are so bland and boring that nobody ever really talks about them anymore. 3 films that fall into that category are The Living Daylights, For Your Eyes Only, and Tomorrow Never Dies. Here are the main villains from those 3 movies. Boring, right? You couldn't pick any of these guys out of a crowd. It's no coincidence that these are the Bond films that fly under the radar. In the first Fast and the Furious, the villain was that guy with the motorcycle. In the second, fourth, and fifth movies, the villains were all generic evil drug lords. Owen Shaw and the Tokyo Drift guy had a bit more character, but it's not until we get to Deckard Shaw and Cypher that we finally start to see the kind of larger-than-life villains a franchise like this deserves. I don't know why it's taken them this long to get here, but a character like Cypher feels absolutely right for this. Whatever they have planned for F9 and beyond, I hope the bad guys get even crazier. In Hobbs and Shaw, the main villain is a bulletproof cyborg man who rides a transforming motorcycle and takes his orders from an unseen Dr. Claw-type figure, and this used to be about street racing! Okay, I'm calm now, I think. But by basing their plot around superhuman villains and focusing the script squarely on winking humor, including hiring Ryan Reynolds, who is basically just a walking human wink, Hobbs and Shaw is 100% an MCU film, and I do not mean that as an insult. I'm just flabbergasted that it exists, and I'm still trying to figure out how we even got here. When you have powerhouses like Helen Mirren, Idris Elba, and Cliff Curtis showing up 100% on board, looking like they're having the time of their lives, you have to acknowledge that this franchise has become something special. The name Fast and the Furious no longer pertains to douchebags with really pretentious car knowledge. Now it pertains to just pure, unadulterated fun. And speaking of fun, the final lesson. There is a writing tenet that I wholeheartedly believe and subscribe to, and Hobbs and Shaw proves that this tenet is not only correct, but it's commercially and entertainment speaking viable. And that tenet is this. The concept of comic relief is utter bullshit. Here's what I mean by that. Think of your main group of family or friends, okay? Now imagine that you're introducing that group to somebody new, and you say to them, hey, come meet my friends. This is John. He's so-and-so. This is Mary. She's such and such. And this is Fred. He's the comic relief. Fred would be insulted, and he should be. Anybody who calls a character comic relief is insulting not only that character, but every other character surrounding them. In real life, there's no such thing as a comic relief person. Every single human is deep and complex and layered and has the capacity to be incredibly funny and deathly serious. To pretend otherwise is idiotic. In my opinion, the greatest writing flaw of the Fast and Furious franchise is that it wholeheartedly subscribes to the concept of comic relief characters. Toretto and Brian and Mia and Letty are never allowed to say or do anything funny. 95% of the goofy moments are given to Roman, with the other 5% usually going to Tej or somebody else. This is stupid. It shouldn't be this way. And Hobbs and Shaw finally fixes this issue. Every single character in Hobbs and Shaw is written correctly. Hobbs, Shaw, Hattie, Brixton, Queenie, they're all given funny moments and serious moments. The concept of comic relief is tossed out into the trash where it belongs, and everyone is allowed to just be human. Yes, even the guy who's kind of a cyborg. For this reason alone, I am saying it right now, Hobbs and Shaw is the best written film in this whole darn franchise. Wow, that really worked. I really did learn a lot about writing and about film by watching 9 movies in the Fast and Furious saga. Some were things I already know and needed reminding of. Some were things that I hadn't even realized until I sat down and put these movies in my brain. And I'm glad I did. Every movie, no matter how great or how small, is a learning lesson. And I think it's time to take that to heart in a bigger way. So, thanks to Fast and the Furious, starting now, here on my channel, movie reviews are going to take on a whole new meaning. When I see a new film, once theaters become a thing again, I'm not just going to come back here and sit down and say, I like this, I didn't like that. Ba-doop-boop-boo. Tune in next week like I usually did before. That got old fast, and frankly, everybody on YouTube is doing that. Who cares? Instead, I am going to take each new film as a learning lesson. I'm going to study it, analyze it, and figure out what I learned or what lesson was reinforced by the film I just watched. That means the reviews might take a little longer to come out. I won't be able to get them up on opening night anymore, but they will be bigger, they'll be better, they'll be flashier, they'll be sexier. There might be explosions behind me. Probably not. That sounds dangerous. But you get the picture. The Thumb Together reviews are going to take on a whole new light, and that change will be, just like the change that happened midway through this franchise, for the better. So thank you for sitting through fasting with me. Now, as promised, your reward, Dominic Toretto's Winning is Winning monologue in Shakespearean iambic pentameter. Because why not? What fun! What merry sport can racing be? 'Twas close, good sir, for I nearly had thee. Take back thy words, small man, for they ring false. Thou nearly had me? Surely that's a jest. I know not what thou had, but I can say without a flicker of a doubt neath my bald pate that thou hadst not of me this night. I doubt thy carriage, even if 'twere asked and given the ability to speak, would say that thou had her reins at all. Exchanging gears in such a manner as would not befit a boy as green as thee, but rather that of some old roomy crone. And double clutching is the very thing that might have saved your race had you been wise. At least the fates were kind enough to smile upon thy curly perm of maiden gold, and keep thy twice coaxed nitrous all a tame so's not to scorch her intake with thy pride. He near had me? Does madness snare his sense? The question posed to any mother's child what calls themselves a racer pure and true. By hair's breadth or by furlong they tell thee, a victory is still a victory.